Before everything, there was structure. Calendars pinned on the fridge. Auto payments scheduled to the minute. Lunches packed at night, so mornings could move without friction. Samantha was a single mom of two, not by choice, but by reality. Her ex disappeared when their youngest was still in diapers. And since then, every dollar, every hour, every breath was accounted for. She worked full-time in a clinic, did freelance admin work on weekends, sold clothes online when bills piled up. But through it all, she kept the house small, 2 bedrooms, peeling paint on the shutters, but it was hers. And in a world that seemed to question her at every turn, that little house never did. The mortgage wasn't cheap, but she never missed a payment. She kept the statements in a blue folder under the sink, organized by year, then by month. Paper trail saves lives, she used to joke. When the kids asked why they couldn't move closer to school, she'd smile and say, "Because this place is ours. They can't take it." She believed that. Because she did everything right. Credit score over 700, taxes filed on time, utilities paid early, even when groceries had to wait. And she never, ever ignored the mail. So when the envelope arrived in late August, bland, unmarked, the kind that slips between coupons and insurance ads, she noticed. It was from the bank. Inside, a notification of escrow reassessment. Language thick, sentences long, but she read every word. What she gathered was this: the monthly mortgage would go up, not drastically, not immediately, but the increase was tied to something called tax variance, and it would be retroactive. A few $100s spread over several months. Manageable, but tight. She called the number on the letter, waited 42 minutes on hold. A man answered, robotic, too fast, clearly reading from a screen. She asked if this was normal. He said, "Happens all the time, just a reassessment. Nothing to worry about." So she adjusted, cut back on streaming, skipped the school fundraiser, delayed the car maintenance, because she would not fall behind. Then came September. A new letter. This one with urgent in red. Different wording, stronger tone. It said she was delinquent. She stared at it like it was written for someone else. Checked her records. Payments made, cleared, posted. She called again. This time, a different voice. The woman on the line was colder. There was a recalculation of your minimum due. You underpaid by $147.34. Underpaid? But I paid the amount on the bill. Yes, ma'am, but the new amount applied retroactively. Samantha exhaled. So I'm being penalized for not predicting something the bank hadn't told me yet? The woman didn't answer. Just said, "Would you like to make a payment today to bring the account current?" That night, Samantha cried for the first time in months. Not because of the money, but because for the first time, her system, the one she'd built out of sweat, lists, and discipline, had a crack. A flaw she couldn't patch with effort. Still, she paid it. Dug into her emergency savings. Pulled from the envelope marked school close, because she believed it was a mistake, and mistakes could be fixed. The next week, the kids asked why she looked tired. She said, "Just a long week, that's all." But inside, something had shifted. The house no longer felt like a promise. It felt like a question, one no one would answer honestly. It arrived on a Thursday. No warning, no call, no knock on the door. Just a plain white envelope, tucked between junk mail and a grocery store flyer. No logo, no friendly greeting. Just her name, spelled correctly, for once, and an address she had memorized like scripture. She opened it in the kitchen, while the spaghetti boiled and her youngest hummed something out of tune. It wasn't a bill. It wasn't a reminder. It was a notice of acceleration. She read it once, then again, then a third time. It said that because her account was in continued default, the entire loan balance was now due. Immediately. In full. She froze. She had just made a payment 2 weeks ago. She had proof. She rushed to her drawer, yanked out the blue folder, flipped to the most recent statement. There it was, payment cleared, check number, confirmation code. She called the bank again. The automated voice didn't recognize her account. She tried again and again. Finally, after 40 minutes of holding through tinny piano music and a repeating message about unusually high call volumes, someone answered. This one sounded local, young, empathetic, until Samantha said her name. A pause. Then, your account was transferred to a third-party servicer. You'll need to contact them directly. Why wasn't I notified? You should have received a notice. I didn't. The voice softened. I'm sorry, ma'am. I really am. But there's nothing I can do from here. She wrote down the new number. Called. Another hold. Another system. Another faceless voice that treated her like a statistic. This one said something different. That there had been a processing error. That one of her payments had been misapplied. That the default status couldn't be reversed. She asked for proof. They offered a mailing address. Paper only. No email. It felt like Stone Age bureaucracy for a modern execution. She emailed. She faxed. She mailed copies of everything. Her statements, confirmations, her own letters begging for clarity. No reply. Weeks passed. Then came another letter. This one marked, Notice of Intent to Foreclose. She stared at the envelope without opening it, because she already knew what it said. The terms were impossible. Legalese twisted into barbed wire. She wasn't behind on principle. She was behind on trust. Because somewhere, between the automated phone lines and outsourced accounting, someone had turned her consistency into a liability. She told no one. Not her mother. Not her coworkers. Not even her kids. She just smiled thinner. Cooked more quietly. Slept less. And every time she checked the mail, her hands trembled. Then one morning, she walked outside and found a sticker on her front door. Bright yellow. With a barcode. And the words, Property of Lender. Do not remove. It was the first time her home no longer felt like hers. Not because of a missed payment, but because of a lie wrapped in paperwork and delay. And the worst part? It wasn't even a person who did it. It was a system. A machine that didn't care how many nights she spent holding that house together while the world fell apart. It was a Monday. The kind that started with rushed cereal, spilled milk, and the never-ending search for a missing shoe. Her kids were half-dressed and laughing, unaware of the shadow stretching quietly across the foundation of their lives. Samantha juggled lunchboxes and backpacks, wrangled jackets onto small arms, and nudged them out the door with practiced chaos. She didn't notice the van at the corner. Not at first. White, unmarked, windows tinted. She thought maybe it was a contractor. After drop-off, she headed to work, same as always. A quick stop for gas. Checked her bank account to make sure nothing strange had cleared. Still low, but stable. Still surviving. She got through her shift, barely. By noon, her stomach ached from the stress. By 3, she was calling the servicer again. Still no update, no letter, no acknowledgement of the documents she had mailed 2 weeks prior. Your account is no longer in our active system, they said. What does that mean? It's been escalated. You'll need to contact the legal department. Another number. Another dead end. By 5:10, she pulled into her driveway. Something felt off. There was a truck in the spot where her neighbor usually parked. A clipboard rested on its dashboard. She stepped onto her porch and froze. The front door. The lock was different. She tried her key anyway. It didn't fit. She tried again, harder. Nothing. A man stepped out from behind the truck. Khakis. Polo shirt. Badge clipped to his belt. Like that made him real. Ma'am, he said calmly, this property has been secured. Secured? You should have received notice. The lender exercised their right under the foreclosure terms. I live here, she said. Not anymore, she laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was absurd, surreal. My kids' backpacks are inside. I'm sorry, ma'am. I really am. But I'm not authorized to let you in. She stared at the window. She could see the couch, the shoes by the door, her youngest's drawing taped to the fridge. How can this happen? She whispered. He didn't answer. He handed her a packet, pages of legal jargon, dates, signatures she didn't recognize. They said she had 72 hours to file an appeal, but the door was already locked. The damage done. Her kids got off the bus 10 minutes later. She met them at the sidewalk. Her daughter frowned. Why are we standing outside? Samantha knelt, forced a smile. We're going to stay at Grandma's for a bit, okay? But I left my stuffed bear. We'll get it later. She couldn't tell them yet. Couldn't say the truth. That the system she trusted, the one she tried to play fair with, had decided she didn't account anymore. That because of a technicality, a misapplied payment, a shift in servicing contracts, their home was no longer theirs. That night, in her mother's guest room, she stared at the ceiling and imagined walking through that front door one more time. Not to fight, just to say goodbye. But the lock had made that impossible. And the bank? The bank didn't care. It had already moved on. In the days that followed, Samantha called every number she could find. She spoke to people with titles that sounded made up. Loss mitigation officer, client recovery liaison, default adjustment agent. Each one said something different. One told her the account was irretrievable. Another said they were reviewing options, though no one could name a single one. One person even claimed the foreclosure was her choice, that she failed to respond to correspondence she never received. She faxed more documents, mailed appeal letters, showed up in person at a downtown office that no longer accepted walk-ins. Everything was met with a wall of scripted empathy and procedural shrugs. I understand your frustration. Unfortunately, that department no longer exists. Please allow 6 to 8 weeks for a response. Meanwhile, her home was listed online as an investment opportunity. Same photos, same walls, same windows her children had drawn on with washable markers just weeks earlier. Now described as vacant, prepped for renovation. Price to sell. She called the listing agent. Told them the house wasn't vacant. That her kids' drawings were still inside. That the toys in the backyard still belonged to people with names and memories. They apologized and blocked her number. The final letter came on a Tuesday. Certified mail. She signed for it with hands she barely recognized anymore. Thinner, shaking, covered in ink from all the notes she'd taken trying to chase accountability. It read, per final adjudication, borrower name and property have been resolved from portfolio status. No further action required. That was it. Her name, the name she used to build credit, raise her kids, fight for extensions, submit payment after payment, had been reduced to a line item now erased from a spreadsheet. The bank never said her name again. No call, no closure, no mention of what she'd lost. Just silence. Like she had never existed in the system at all. At night, she'd lie awake and imagine telling her kids the truth. That she didn't fail. That the house wasn't lost because of anything she did. That it was taken. Systematically, quietly, legally. But she couldn't explain laws they'd never understand. So she told them stories about a fresh start. They smiled, believed her, trusted her. She held on to that. It was all she had left. Samantha still keeps the folder. Blue, worn. Corners bent from too many searches for truth no one ever intended her to find. Inside are copies of every payment, letters she wrote, phone numbers that now lead to voicemails that never return calls. Sometimes she takes it out just to remind herself. I wasn't careless. I wasn't late. I wasn't wrong. She was simply invisible. A woman who played by the rules until the rules rewrote themselves without notice and blamed her for not adapting fast enough. Now she lives in a smaller place, rents, pays cash, trusts paper, not people. Her children have adjusted. They don't ask about the old house anymore, not as much. But sometimes her daughter still draws it. Same red door, same tiny porch, same big window that faced the street. And Samantha smiles, even when it hurts, because she knows that memory is the only thing they didn't take. They erased her from the system, but not from the truth. And when someone tells her, just work hard and you'll be fine, she nods politely. But inside, she remembers the lock and the silence